Hi, everyone. My name is Michelle Schwer. I'm the co-director of our medical physics graduate program here at Brown, and I'm very excited that you joined us today. There's nothing more than I love to talk about our program, so this is a lot of fun for me, and hopefully get some of your questions answered as well. So I am going to share my screen. All right. Hopefully you all can see, and we will get started. All right. Bryce, can they see the screen?
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, they can.
Okay, good. So once again, just thank you so much for joining us. We are very proud of our program. And today we're just going to talk a little bit about the program structure, the overview. I'm going to introduce some of the faculty. We'll talk to either current or former students, depending on who was able to join us on this Friday afternoon. And I would love to talk to you about what makes our program unique, because you're probably looking at many different graduate programs, also learning about medical physics, and it's difficult to know which is the right choice. So I would like to highlight a few things about our program where we believe we set you up for success. The importance of CAMPEP accreditation, but also you're coming to Brown for medical physics, but there's so many resources through Brown, and I think it's important to talk about that as well. And then at the very end, we'll kind of open it up for a question and answer session. All right, so first things first, we'll talk about the structure of our program. And very simply put, our only goal is to put you on the path to be a qualified medical physicist. So we want you to succeed. And there's many things that we do in order to ensure success. One of those things being that we take pride in the program and the courses that we offer. We feel that they're different than necessarily other programs out there. So I encourage you to look at that. But we really strive to focus on our faculty and student ratio. We don't necessarily want to accept 40 students to medical physics. We want to accept a number that we're comfortable with so we can fully support you. And that's from when your boots hit the ground as soon as you get here to when you leave and even after as an alumnus. We do have some learning outcomes that you'll also notice are on our website. So a couple of things that we want you to do as a student. We want you to have in-depth knowledge of medical physics, and both in radiation oncology and also imaging. We want you to demonstrate that you're proficient in that knowledge, whether that be a poster presentation, an oral presentation, either at a local or national conference. So that could be the Northeast AAPM chapter presenting there. That could be the AAPM annual meeting. We encourage our students to go to these meetings to meet contacts, but also to learn more about the field. We want you to pass the ABR Part 1 exam. We've made some shifts in our course curriculum that I'll talk to. That way you can take that ABR Part 1 exam earlier, which makes you a more competitive resident, should you choose the residency option, but also if you choose to get a PhD after your time here, it makes you more competitive as well. We ask our students to contribute to faculty projects. We think very strongly that the working in the clinic and working on a project just enhances your didactic learning. So we want you to experience both. And our students, we do have a thesis requirement, and we have a whole semester devoted to research. We do have coursework. One of the CAMPEP required materials is an ethics discussion. So used to, we had RSNA ethics, modules that we would ask the students to do, and they would do both responsibility or research module, but we've actually changed this. We are a small program, so we listen to our students and we look at that feedback, and we're actually going to transition to an ethics seminar series. I'm currently in the process of designing that series, but what it'll be is 1 to 3 lectures and one-on-one with faculty. And it gives you more of a chance to have an ongoing discussion about what is ethical and what is not. And so I think that is going to be much better than sitting you in front of a computer doing a module at your leisure. We'll actually sit down and have a discussion on things going on in the field. Our curriculum, so what makes us different? Just going to highlight a few points. So one of the things that makes us different is we offer in the year of Spring 2 a computational medical physics course. Coding and scripting has become more integrated into our field, and we want to make sure that you know and are comfortable with how to do that. We'll cover some Monte Carlo modeling and the methods and theories behind it. We also have an informatics and data science class as well. And so that's year 1 spring. I think one of the hallmarks of our program is year 2 fall. So we ask that you have a thesis project, but unlike other programs, we actually give you time to work on that project. You have an entire semester dedicated to research. During that semester, we ask that you do a small clinical practicum. We start bringing you into the clinic because now you have enough didactic learning under your belt that all these concepts are going to be concrete, and you can really focus on that fall of getting your research done. Now, the timing of this semester is really important because year 2 spring is when you'll have residency interviews, or your application interviews for a PhD program, depending on which route you take. And your research will be in a state where you'll be able to talk intelligently about it. You'll have a presentation. You've already been working with your mentor. Hopefully, you have enough research completed that you have that poster or abstract in an upcoming annual meeting. So it's only additive, and it makes your step after Brown more competitive. So we're happy when you're here, but we want to get you to the next step in your career. One of the things that we really strive on is getting you plugged into the community. We want you to be a medical physicist, but we also want to make sure that you know what options are available to you. So we get you plugged in with the AAPM. In the AAPM, there's an educational library, there's annual meetings, and so we ask that you have a student membership. We sponsor your student membership. And getting into a professional society this early just gives you more resources for learning. You can ask other people questions, you can conduct, interdisciplinary research at multiple institutions because there are forums that you can connect to. So it really just broadens your experience. While we do have the program through Brown, we have a clinical site that we bring you into. And so I just want to talk a little bit about our partner institution, which is Brown University Health. It is consisted of 5 hospital partners. Our main hospital is Rhode Island Hospital. At Rhode Island Hospital, we can work in the radiation oncology department. We have another radiation oncology department that's more outpatient in East Greenwich, Rhode Island. So you see that's just about 20 minutes south. One nice thing about Rhode Island, besides being the ocean state, is that everything is very close. Everything's 20 minutes from one another. So even though these hospitals look far apart on the map, they're actually very, very easily drivable distance. In addition, the Rhode Island Hospital is expanding. So Brown University Health is growing, and they're expanding into Massachusetts. Our faculty physics team is working right now to get those sites up and running, but that will offer more resources available to our master's students. So it's a very exciting time as we bring more technology on. It's only more opportunities available. And it wouldn't be a good time unless we talked about all the technology that we have. So I've listed the technology that we have available at both Rhode Island Hospital and East Greenwich. I haven't listed any technology as we grow because that's not necessarily open to students yet. But we do have 4 linear accelerators that students can work on. We have specialized external beam radiation therapy systems. We do a Linac-based SRS, so stereotactic radiosurgery. So the analog to SRS and SBRT, stereotactic body radiotherapy, is surgery. It's just as efficient and has the same outcomes as surgery. So we treat it with the same level of rigor. We have an electric gamma knife unit that uses cobalt-60 to do SRS. That is the gold standard in radiosurgery. Our brachytherapy options. So outside of external beam, where radiation comes from the outside in, sometimes we have radiation from the inside out, and that's brachytherapy. Dr. Rivard is an expert in brachytherapy. We're very lucky to have him as part of our program. And we offer an Electa HDR system, a high dose rate, but we also offer LDR prostate implants. And then what I lovingly call creative customized implants. So one of the things in our field that you'll quickly realize is there isn't a one-size-fits-all solution, nor should there be. And so we really look at each patient and each patient's specific cancer and come up with the best treatment for that patient at that time. So Mark is a wizard at this, and he will create beautiful skin treatments, custom molds on patients, and I love his creativity. It's very additive to our program. For brachytherapy, we treat a lot of GYN cancers using many different applicators. We also treat skin cancers, either with a Valencia or a device called a Freiberg flap. And then occasionally we'll do a bronchial implant as well, something called interluminal brachytherapy. For our LDR program, where we use physical sources that we'll leave in the patient, we do prostate seed, but we also have a gamma tile program. And so we have a couple trials with GT Medical that are up and coming. One I think we have a meeting on in 1 or 2 weeks, and we will use the gamma tile. So what that does is after the surgeon has done a resection, we can leave small radioactive tiles on the outside of the cavity. And what this does is right at the outside and the edges of the cavity are at high risk for recurrence. And the thought is that these gamma tile seeds will provide a boost and lead to an improved area of care. So we are treating all these patients under clinical trial, and we're really looking forward to seeing what the outcomes are. For external beams, so going back to where we have radiation from the outside in, we treat a plethora of things, 3D conformal, IMRT, VMAT, electrons, but we also do a special type of treatment called pulse-reduced dose rate. And you will learn in Rad Bio with me that I teach why we do that. It's particularly good for retreatment cases. We do grid therapy as well, and we're working on kind of incorporating that more into the clinic. You'll learn more about that. And we do have a hyperthermia system. On the imaging side, we have 2 virtual simulators. We have Siemens 64 slides. We have onboard imaging. We have BrainLab Exact treatment on our TrueBeam STX, so that helps with our SRS cases. It allows us to have improved accuracy. We have a respiratory gating system, so we can do breath hold and gated cases. And outside of Rhode Island Hospital and East Greenwich clinics available are Siemens 3T MR, PET, ultrasound, and access to interventional radiology, where we'll have implants such as Y90 and Sir Spears. Software technology we have available to us. Our clinic uses a treatment planning system called RaySearch and RayStation. We do have an old variant Eclipse box where you can gain experience. And we have Electa Gamma Plan for SRS. We have Electa on Centra for HDR, Veriseed for LDR. And we have some imaging software as well called Velocity, which allows us to do complex deformable image registrations. And we use ARIA Record and Verify. Through Brown, you will have access to the magnetic resonance facility. Also at Brown, we've had students utilize the high performance computing laboratory for their projects. We have solid phantoms that are available for research, dosimeters, and survey meters, should our students need that. And one of the lovely things through the university is access to the Brown Library and all the journals that come with it. So now I'm going to take a moment to introduce some faculty. I've been talking for a while, but I never formally introduced myself. So I am the program director. I share this responsibility with Dr. Walsh, who you'll meet on the next slide. I teach Med 2310, which is radiation biology, but I also co-teach a course with Dr. Brindle, radiation dosimetry. So I'll start teaching that in the spring. I have a master's from Vanderbilt University that was highly focused on clinical training. And I do say my expertise is CT SIM and also radiation dosimetry, the treatment planning system. But I can, if it's in the clinic, I've probably done it before or have experience with it. So I'm first and foremost a clinical physicist and then an educator, and I love to do everything in the clinic. So if you have any questions, I'll probably tell you 5 different ways to do it based on what I've done, but I like to give students multiple options and have them think through the problems. My main research interest is standardization of care. I'm very passionate that when a patient comes in, they should get a high level of care regardless of who is on their team. So how can we do that? How can we take the knowledge of an expert planner and apply that to someone who's fresh out of school? The same thing with a physicist. How do we take someone with 30 years of knowledge and make sure that that person coming straight out of school also feels supported and applies the same level of care? So that's something I'm working on. It often comes with a lot of automation, and we are working on incorporating that into the clinic. So now I'm going to take a moment to stop talking, and I'm going to let Dr. Walsh introduce himself. Ed, I believe you're on mute.
Got it. Okay, yeah, I just didn't want you to hear me drinking coffee here, but anyway. All right, so as Michelle pointed out, I help her out with running the program. I've been at Brown since 2005, and I'm located over here on the main campus, down the hallway from the MRI facility, which I help run with Mike Worden. So I teach the physics of medical imaging course in the spring. My background is actually electrical engineering and biomedical engineering with a heavy emphasis on physics, both from WPI. My faculty appointment is, I'm basically an associate professor in the Carney Institute for Brain Science, again, over here on the main campus. In the past, I've done clinical support at the Central Mass Magnetic Imaging Center up in Worcester. I did 12 years at University of Alabama, Birmingham, and currently providing support at the Veterans Administration Hospital over in Providence, Rhode Island. My current research interests involve image-guided microwave tumor ablation therapy. In fact, we just picked up an NSF STTR phase 2 grant to pursue this treatment, experimental treatments in lung. Also have an NSF funded project involving the up and coming medical imaging modality known as magnetic particle imaging. And so I have a project with a friend at URI where we're designing, basically custom designing magnetic nanoparticles specifically for imaging. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
All right, thanks, Sad. All right, I'm going to introduce Dr. Amano. It looks like he was not able to join us today, but Dr. Amano also teaches physics and medical imaging and physics and nuclear medicine. His education is from UMass Boston, and he listed his thesis as well. Specialties, Mike is a whiz at diagnostic medical physics, nuclear medical physics, and health physics. Dr. Amano is actually our RSO at Rhode Island Hospital, and he's a great resource to have around for anything imaging-based. He does offer a 40-hour practicum on diagnostic and nuclear medical physics that is held during the research semester in the fall of year 2. Dr. Rivard, who has not been able to join us today either, so I'll kind of introduce Dr. Rivard. One of my former colleagues referred to him as the godfather of brachytherapy. Mark actually designed and crafted the rigor around how we talk about the dosimetry of physical sources. So he is an amazing resource when it comes to brachytherapy. He's also an expert in gamma knife, total body irradiation, and he teaches radiation safety with Dr. Carver. Dr. Hall teaches anatomy and physiology, and he got his postdoc interesting from the pathology and laboratory of medicine at Brown. Interesting enough, Dr. Hall has recently gotten into 3D printing, and I know this because the students come from his class directly into mine, and lately they're always bringing in some kind of 3D printed object, be it like a vertebral body or a piece of the brain, and I love that that is his latest project. Dr. Carver, like he is also covering the clinic today, has many research interests. So Dr. Carver co-teaches with both Dr. Cardarelli and Dr. Rivard. He is trained out of Wayne State. We're very lucky to have him. He teaches both radiation protection and safety and radiological physics and dosimetry. His main research interests are radiomics and AI, so automation. Currently, Dr. Carver has one student, and he is expanding on a research project based on radiomics. We have a couple more faculty as well. So Dr. Cardarelli, I see you have joined us. Would you introduce yourself, please?
Sure, can you hear me?
I can.
Yep, my name's Gene Cardarelli. I've been in the field a long time. I think 1993 was when I entered medical physics. Mostly my concentration's been on radiation oncology, and my specialties are radiosurgery and quality assurance in the clinic. I have the responsibility of making sure everybody does their annual, daily, and monthly checks. And we just got accredited by the ACR again. which is a 3-year process. At Brown, I am an associate professor, and I teach radiation dosimetry and advanced radiation therapy in the second semester for the second years. And research-wise, if a student comes to me with a project, then we usually get an abstract out of it. But mostly I've done grid research and pulsed radiation dose research, all the things that come up in the clinic that no one else wants to do. That's usually I'm the one that takes it on. I think it's just because I've been in the field long enough and I haven't learned to say no. So with that, I'll stop talking. Thank you.
So also on this slide is Dr. Brendel, who is our Chief of Physics at Brown University Health, Dr. Sakar, who teaches bioinformatics, and then we have Dr. Langer, who does computational medical physics. And I apologize, Dr. Hatta, I did not add your slide. That is not intentional, but would you please introduce yourself?
That's okay. The picture you have is about the 10 years old and deceiving. So you shouldn't have put it. My name is Nobi Hara. I'm actually attending from Brigham and Women's Hospital. I'm a professor of Harvard Medical School. I'm a scientist working at the radiology department. I'll be teaching the second year class on MRI imaging and image-guided intervention. I've been here at the Brigham and Women's Hospital and the Harvard Medical School since 1995 when I was a grad student, just like you are. So I love seeing new generation of medical physicists and come in and joining our field. So this is one of the rewarding job I have. As a researcher, I am specialized in medical robotics, but not just the research in medical robotics, but also application medical robotics. And we have an amazing place called Amigo OR, where we actually do the surgery using MRI, CT, and then in the navigation devices. And then, in fact, Julia can attest it, but we have two field trips to Amigo for you to come and operate the MRI scanner and then understand the mathematics and theory behind image-guided therapy. So it's great. As a mentor of this cohort in the past 3 years, is it 3 years, I guess? I've been connected with students who is interested in pursuing their career in PhD after this. I think one of the students from the first year ended up going to PhD because I convinced him that was a great idea, and he's doing great. So if you're interested in PhD avenue, I'm happy to talk about it, and I still can communicate with them after their graduation through LinkedIn. Introducing the internship and research opportunity to them. So I'm so excited to work with you if you join us. For research, I'm sorry, I have one more thing. So I haven't had any students for research here at the Brigham mostly because logistics, because most of you decide to live in Providence. But I'm happy to also talk about what the research is about when you're interested in research too. Thank you.
Right. And so now we're going to talk about current and former student experiences. So this is Anthony Marcello, and he is one of recently our second year students. And I just asked him to list some reasons about why he chose Brown. And he said that it was really the professors on the program, that the professors really cared about each student, the connections that he made, and the program success rate. We have 100% placement rate for both residency and PhD. The location doesn't hurt. It's nice to live in the Ocean State. And also the clinical exposure. We want you to be involved. We want you to shadow in the clinic. We enjoy having students here. We all have a passion to teach, and when you're around, it just really enhances our day-to-day experience as faculty, but watching the students from when they arrive to when they leave and how much information they learned is extremely rewarding. So Anthony notes that professors have been supportive, interactive. We encourage feedback from students. He has a strong relationship with his peers. He says classes have been challenging but productive. Anthony came to us with a chemistry background. That's another thing that makes our program unique, is we don't necessarily just take students with a physics background, but we believe that, you know, if you come to us from another field, that it only adds to the medical physics and all. And he's been really enjoying Providence. I'm going to turn it over to Julia, who was a former student, recently graduated in May, and now signed on to be a resident with us.
Hello, everyone. My name is Julia. Like Michelle said, I went through the master's program here, and now I'm the resident. So I've been here for about 2 years and a few months. I've really enjoyed my time in Providence. It has really good food. It has a really good sense of community. It's incredibly walkable. And the proximity to New York City, Boston, we have access to Amtrak, makes traveling and getting out of town really easy. And of course, it's the ocean state, so there's a ton of beaches. I also really enjoyed the community at Brown University, both within the medical physics department and outside of the medical physics department. Brown has a very special way of bringing students together and giving us a lot of cool experiences that not every university offers. During my time at Brown, I worked with Dr. Carver on a project for radiomics. That's what I wrote my thesis in, and I feel like that really set me up for success. I entered that project without really having much coding experience, and by the time I finished, I was pretty proficient in how to write my code and how to understand Python a little more. The program itself prepared me really well for both taking the ABR and also for starting residency. I felt like I clearly liked the program enough to stay and become the resident. So, yeah, nothing but good experiences. Thanks, Michelle.
Thanks, Julia. And I'd like to talk a little bit about Connor. So Connor has a unique path as well, kind of similar to Julia, we hope. So Connor graduated in our inaugural class in 2023. I did mention that we are a newer program, which means one of the things that we do is listen to you and your feedback and use that to shape our program. He was then matched to us at our residency, and he was a TA and tutor for all the medical physics courses. Very recently, Connor has loved Providence, and I would like to say us so much that he has decided to stay on as faculty, which is very exciting. And watching him grow from a student to a junior faculty member has been an amazing experience. And now he's starting to kind of take over his own areas in the clinic and own things, and it's been just lovely to watch his educational journey. Connor notes that he learned a lot. We do tend to throw a lot at you, start basic, and then we keep slowly building and building. So in some courses, we will repeat topics, but that's intentional because the first time you're exposed to something, you may not necessarily understand all aspects of it. Similar to Julia's experience, he noted that he was well prepared for the boards, which is our goal. In order to be a qualified medical physicist, you need to pass the ABR board exam. And so we want to make sure that our students feel comfortable with what they learn, that they can do that. He was an IMRT QA tech when he was here. So I want to talk a little bit about that experience. So we ask our students and give them the opportunity to do QA in the evenings. So they will sign on, they'll shoot patient-specific QA on a device called a map check, which is a diode array. And it gives you a little bit of extra spending money in your pocket. Another thing that we love is it gets you involved. It brings you into the clinic. You're running the machine yourself. So it really enhances your knowledge if you're able to do that. The practicum courses that he enjoyed are both therapy and imaging. and he was able to see prostate seed LDR implants as a student. When Connor was in our program, some of his research was beta testing a new device from IBA called MyQA SRS. And he was able to compare that to what we use clinically, which is in the top picture, the MapCheck 2. And Connor decided that our MapCheck 2 needed to have better resolution, similar to the MyQA SRS. And he investigated a different mode of the device that we weren't using called HD mode. So he was able to do this even as a student. It improved the resolution, meaning that we could treat smaller lesions with more confidence. And now that is our standard of care for very small lesions in the clinic. So our students have a place to impact patient care. And I think that that's really important. We try to bring our students in on clinical projects that we're working on, because understanding how you change a process when it affects patients, understanding how you change a process that affects different departments, different roles within the same department is really important. And so we do tend to talk about process change as well. And so Connor was able to do that, which is nice. His thesis project did involve kind of extracting data from an EMR system. More experience as a resident, so now kind of moving outside of his graduate experience but into his resident experience. He explored that phasing out OSLD devices instead of using film dosimetry. He also was looking into radionomics, normalization, feature selection, and modeling. And as a resident, he was working with a current Brown student on that project, and that thesis work is now completed. So as a resident, he still got to enjoy teaching and working with students. At the AAPM in 2022, he was in person, he did a poster. 2023, he had a virtual poster. At the American Physical Society in 2023, he had an oral presentation. And in 2024, he had a poster. So what I think that this shows is that Connor has been doing very well with the education that we gave him, and he's been pretty productive academically. You can see Connor on the left-hand side in the top picture. And the reason he's not here today is because my friend is covering for me, so I get to talk to you. So he's actually covering my clinical duties. Now I'm going to go into the part of the presentation about what makes Brown unique. We do have many, many different resources. You know, we care about you academically. We care about growing you as a medical physicist, but you're more than that. Brown is committed to caring for you as an entire person. So outside of academics, like what moves you? So Brown has an office of well-being, and through that, there is psychological services, wellness services. You have other things you can sign up for. Office of Wellbeing does events. Sometimes they'll do like yoga in the med school. Sometimes and all of these come into your email. So should you want to just kind of take a moment and have mindfulness, or you're feeling very stressed and you want to go, this is available freely for you to take advantage of. The Office of Student Affairs. So in this office, they give you support to help medical students, and since we fall under the medical school, we can use the support as well for involvement in different areas of research. So should you need like learning accommodations, we can get that through the Office of Student Affairs. Should you need tutoring experience, conference funding support, which is always very nice. We love for you to go to these conferences in person with us. So funding for that is just as important, right? Your pocketbook is part of who you are as a whole person, and we can get funding through Brown. We also have some funding through the hospital as well, because your research at our partner hospital, Brown University Health, helps both the hospital and your education. Oh no, it looks like my Zoom link has dropped off. Are you guys still here?
Oh, we can still hear you.
Can you see the screen?
We cannot.
Okay.
No, the screen
Perfect.
went
You
away,
have-
but we can hear you.
Okay. It looks like it's coming back up. Just
Okay.
1 second. I apologize.
Nice. In the meantime, I'm going to drop a link in the chat to the Student Affairs website if you're interested in learning more, meeting the team. That link is in the chat for you.
Thank you, Bryce.
Mhm.
Okay, so it looks like you can see the screen.
Yes, the screen is back for us. You are just, your audio is gone.
All right, is this better?
Perfect.
Got it. All right, it's never a dull day. Other resources that are available to you is the Brown Library. This is quite possibly one of my favorites that I get to tap into as a professor. But one of the things that Brown Library does is it can help you with your research. So all your research for your thesis, they can assist you with. And importantly, they can help you with your CV and your personal statement as you apply for residencies or PhD. That's a really, really nice resource that we can tap into. International students, should you be coming to us internationally, you'll be working with an office called OISSS. And they just really make sure that your visa's in line, that everything's working for you, and you can reach out to them at any time if you have any questions. Software. What software catalogs do you have available to you as a student? So you can look at the catalog and you can view it. One of the things, a couple that I like to highlight is that you can get Microsoft Office 365 Professional, which is really nice for students. So you have something that you can use. Brown often uses the Google Suite, but the hospital system uses Microsoft Suite. And so however you choose to communicate with your professors, you have both available to you, should it be Google Docs or Microsoft 365. But you should look through the software catalog and download as many free software choices as you can. We are a CAMPEP approved program. So CAMPEP, you probably honestly found us through the CAMPEP website to learn about us. We were accredited in 2021 and we received reaccreditation in 2023, I believe. So CAMPEP is the Commission on Accreditation of Medical Physics Education Programs. So it's a mouthful. But what this organization does is they standardize the education. So for each class and course that we teach, we have to cover certain topics. A thing that sets us apart is I mentioned that we see value in accepting students from various backgrounds of study. We want you to get where you need to go. So in order to do that, CAMPEP has a pathway for students coming to us that maybe they haven't necessarily have the equivalent of a minor in physics. So what we would do as an institution is that we would ask you to meet that requirement for a minor in physics before you graduate, and that will allow you to be into a residency program. We currently have one of our students that's doing this remediation. We also screen your application very early on and identify you that you need this remediation. You can get the physics course at any institution, and you just have to make sure that it's completed by the time you graduate. So this won't be a surprise. And I also want to point out that this remediation criteria is not unique to us at Brown University. It's not like we're asking you to do this. You cannot get into a residency program unless this is met. So we want to make sure we identify early on that it needs to be complete. We don't judge you just because you don't have a minor in physics. We're committed to making sure that you're able to get to the next step on your professional journey. And then we can put you in contact with, we can put you in contact with professors in physics. Okay.
I'm happy to share my screen if you think that would work better right now. I think we lost your audio there for a moment.
Okay, yes, I would appreciate you sharing your screen, please.
Perfect. Okay. My Zoom has been taking a moment to load things, so I think it looks dark right now, but it will start in a moment. There we go. Can you see it now?
Okay, I can.
Perfect.
All right, I just wanted to talk about our deadlines. So this is on our website, but I like to bring it up since you guys are here. Obviously, I hope you're excited to apply. Maybe you've already started the application. We are open. We do have a priority deadline of January 15th. So what that priority deadline means is that after January 15th, we'll start doing interviews. We do require an interview with you, just a virtual interview. We're not going to make you pay to come to Brown, although if you come here, we would love to host you. And we will continue that interview process. We have rolling admissions until we get a sufficient class size, and we will go until March 1st. After March 1st, we will not be accepting any deadlines.
Awesome. And then I can talk about the application components. So for those of you who have not met me, my name is Bryce. I am a recruitment counselor within the Division of Masters and Professional Programs. You might recognize me if you have attended one of the Belong at Brown sessions or signed up for advising hours with me. And I just want to give you some details about the application. So a complete application is needed for review. We cannot review your application unless it is complete and has all of the components. So these are all the components you need. This is a very screenshotable slide. Let's talk about transcripts. When you start your application, you can submit it with unofficial transcripts. But if you are admitted, we will require your official transcripts by the time your classes start. International transcripts do need to be evaluated. That can be through WES, ECE, or TEC, and they must be translated into English as well. We are hoping to see your resume or your CV just to give us an idea of what your professional interests are, what your experience has been in, and that can include anything professional, but it can also include anything you have done alongside maybe getting undergraduate degrees. That can be presentations you've given, publications that you have, any volunteer work that you've done, anything that really showcases kind of your professional pathway up until now. We're also looking for a personal statement, and this is the part of the application where we kind of get to know you the best. It is your story in context with the program. So how did you first find your passions here? What got you interested? What are you doing now that's kind of supporting your goals? And then what do you think this program is going to do for you in terms of helping you reach your short and long-term goals? So tying in, I like to say past, present, future. What have you done? Where did you start? Where are you now? And then where are you hoping to be after the program? We want to know that you've done a little bit of research into this program. So tying in any specific courses that you're interested in. Now you know some faculty members and their research interests. If you have similar interests, you can include that as well. Then 3 letters of recommendation. We're hoping for a couple academic letters of recommendation, but if it's been a few years since you've been in school, we also understand that, and we do accept professional letters of recommendation from supervisors, mentors, advisors, anyone who can really see how you learn and how you apply what you have learned and can speak to your unique sets of skills. Those are going to be really good letters of recommendation. Then the application fee, it is $100. If you are attending today's session, that is going to be waived for you. It will be automatically applied to the account that is connected to the email you used to sign on to this Zoom session today. If you do need it to be moved to a separate email account, you can email my team. That is masters_events@brown.edu, and I can get that fixed for you. And then, as Michelle mentioned, there are video interviews in January.
All right, thanks, guys. That may be it for us. I think we can start the Q&A. Yeah.
Great. Awesome. So our first question that we got, students must choose a thesis advisor before the start of their second semester. Is this done by the students taking initiative and contacting faculty, or are there rotations through the lab?
I actually think that's a very good question. We don't necessarily expect our students to kind of reach out to faculty, although you are more than welcome to. If you are connecting with a certain faculty or they talked about their research in class and you would like to be a part of that, by all means do that. But every spring we host a session where all the faculty will get together and we'll talk about research projects that we either are about to start, ongoing, anything that we think would be a good thesis project. And then generally after that session, we have kind of a pairing between students and faculty.
Great. Our next question, I'm very interested in theranostics. Do you have any research projects in this field?
So that would be a good question. I could put that out to all the faculty. I know that I am not doing research in theranostics myself, but I can ask the faculty and we can get back to you.
Great. So the next question I'm seeing is, does your residency program have an internal match or any preference for your own students?
So this is actually something that we've been discussing. This is something that is an ongoing discussion with Dr. Langer. So I know I talked about Brown University Health expanding. And one of those things with that expansion would be that we have more satellites, some more partner hospitals, and that also increases the justification for the potential from our residency students. We encourage our students to apply, but we do go through the MedPhys Match program. And I wouldn't say at this point that we have a preference for our own students, but should we expand the number of residents that we accept from 2 to 4, we may earmark one spot just for Brown students. But that's currently not in place today. That's something that Dr. Langer and I are discussing.
Thank you. Our next question, Julia, you mentioned that you felt Brown prepared you well for residency and the ABR. I'm wondering what about this program specifically made you feel that way?
That's a really good question. Thanks for asking that. So I'll start off with the ABR. So for anyone who's not familiar with the ABR, it's a board exam that's over 200 questions. I think it's 230 questions. And when I was taking it and studying for it, there was a lot of breadth of material, but there was also a lot of depth, which I felt like Brown does a really good job at covering both of those. Within those 200 or so questions, there was very few questions that I opened up and I thought, oh no, I don't know how to answer this or even where to start. There was maybe 2 or 3 of them like that. So there was nothing really like new or shocking that I came across while I was studying for it. Um, and I think what really helped prepare me for that is you learn all of these concepts in the classroom, but then you're also invited into the clinic to shadow where you can really marry the two ideas together. The faculty here are incredibly invested in everyone's education, and they create a learning environment that allows you to ask. It's a safe space where you can ask any question that you may be embarrassed to ask or like you feel like it's silly. No one ever really makes you feel like you should just know something. So they do a really good job at fostering a really safe environment to learn in. And there's also space to explore different things that you're interested in through research. So overall, I think that the didactic side of things and also the opportunity to come in the clinic really just prepare you for both of those next points in your career.
Thank you. Next question that we'll cover, would all students take the same courses in the first year and then pick different modalities in the second year by their interest?
So I would say that all students generally take the same courses, period. It would be your research in your research project that would set you apart, whether you're looking to go more imaging or therapy based.
Let's see. Someone's asking, Dr. Walsh, you are involved with work at the VA. I'm wondering what that looks like, and I'm curious if there are opportunities for students to get involved there as well.
Okay, well, the activities that I was involved with at the VA mainly involved supporting specific research projects in neuroimaging and neurospectroscopy. One of the nice things about magnetic resonance is that we can use the same hardware that we use for acquiring images to acquire spectra from specific localizations, specific local places. And in fact, my latest project was actually doing cardiac spectroscopy using phosphorus 31. At the moment, some of those projects are on pause pending further federal action. But we're hopeful that probably by next fall that all of those projects will be resumed. Also some quality assurance work that I've done over there when they install new custom pulse sequences on their scanners. So hopefully next fall, all of the projects will be back up and running.
Michelle, I'm going to have you look in the Q&A and see if there are any you are particularly interested in right now.
Okay. Let's answer. So the question is, what would you say are the most important parts of the application and who reviews them? So I think it's really important to know that process, right? You spend so much time on working on this application. And so we have a committee that does it. It's headed by Dr. Cardarelli. So Dr. Cardarelli and myself will do a first pass through applicants. And we'll kind of we both look at an applicant. We really try to strive to have a process that removes bias. So more than one person will look at your application. And then if we think the application is strong, it'll go to a larger committee. Dr. Hatta is on that committee, Dr. Walsh is on that committee. Sometimes we have other faculty rotate in, such as Dr. Rivard, Dr. Carver. And at that point, when we open it up to more faculty, we'll have an interview process. We'll promote you to the interview. So parts of the application that are important. We want to know who you are. We want to know what motivates you. We want to know why you chose us. Because we believe our program is great, but why do you think it's great? You're probably applying to a lot of places. So what sets us apart? Why do you want to come here? We also want to know if you have any research experience. Do you have coding experience? If you don't, that's fine. We can definitely shore that up when you're here. But if you have that, I think that that's important to highlight. And, you know, why did you get into medical physics? That motivation, I think, is really key, because we want to see that you have drive and initiative as part of the application. Looking over some more questions. So I think that goes also, when I mentioned programming, that kind of answers this question as well about demonstration of programming skills is required. For most applicants, that are applying with a traditional physics degree, programming is included in a physics major. Also, engineering typically takes a programming course, so we have not necessarily seen where this requirement is an impediment. We do not have any preference on the set computer language. We want to make sure that you understand the structure of coding and writing scripts. And Julia even mentioned that she didn't have much coding experience when she started. So we accepted her as a student, right? And then when she got to her thesis project with Dr. Carver, she admitted that she didn't have any coding experience, but she showed that willingness to learn. And I think that's something that we really look for on the application: drive, initiative, willingness to learn. Because what's unique about this field is how quickly that technology advances and process change. And so you have to look at things with a critical eye, and you have to be continuously learning the next technology advancement, and then you'll be educating both the staff that you'll be working with and also sometimes the physicians you'll be working with on the technology. So how can you convey the knowledge that you know as well? All right. I think that gets most of the questions.
Awesome. I do see a question here. Do you require the GRE or any equivalent?
Thank you. I missed that one. No, we do not require the GRE as part of our application.
Great.
I do see one question. I'm an MRI technologist and only focused on patient care during my undergraduate degree. So I do not have a physics minor, and I also need to learn some coding skills. If I complete these requirements during the semester, I would apply. Would that still be acceptable? Of course, of course. Once again, that CAMPEP requirement for a physics minor, we are able to accept you without that requirement being fulfilled. But in order to get to the next step of your professional journey, we need to ensure that that requirement is fulfilled. So if you are able to have the equivalent of a physics minor before you apply, fantastic. If you want to go ahead and apply as you're in the process of trying to meet that physics requirement, that's fine too. So I wouldn't necessarily say withhold the application and when you apply based on that. We just want to make sure when you graduate that you're able to get into residency without any impediment.
There's a question in here about GA, TA positions that I could speak on a little bit. Once you enroll as a student, then you'll get access to a website called Handshake, and that is where all of the on-campus positions are posted. And so that'll be TA, RA, GA, which are teaching assistant, research assistant, or graduate assistant, but also things like dining services or bookstore workers. And those are available for international students as well. The Student Employment Office, their website is going to have all of the information you need regarding availability, regarding payment, and all that you would need to know.
I see a question about what are the stats for admissions. And so I'm just going to go back to our goal of class size. We do have a set number of faculty, right? We want to make sure that you feel supported. That's our number one goal. We want to get you to the next step in your career. In order to do that, we have a class size of 10 or less. And that's by design. We want to keep that ratio set so we can ensure quality of our program. And with that faculty ratio, right, say you're working with one professor, you can ask any faculty a question. It's not necessarily just the person you're paired with for your research. So we like to be open with our students, and in order to do that, we're looking for a class size of 10 or less.
One of the questions is, what would you say are the pros of doing this program compared to directly going to residency?
That's a really good question. So unfortunately, you can't go direct to residency unless you graduate from a CAMPEP approved master's program. So I would say that come to us first.
And that looks like all of the questions that we have right now.
Good. Well, if there are any more questions, you're able to email me. My contact information is on the website. You're also able to email Miss Amanda Fries-Howard. She is our guru and keeps me in check. She is our admin for our program, and she is extremely responsive. So please don't hesitate to reach out. We'd love if you complete your application and apply, and hopefully we will see you here next fall.
Wonderful. All right. Are we ready to end our session?
I believe so.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you all.